She thought he was just a taxi driver. Then he took off his hat. She never imagined the man behind the wheel was the same person she'd read about in the headlines years ago, the man who vanished without a trace. But when he took off his hat, everything she thought she knew about him, and herself, came crashing down. Rain poured heavily against the windshield as Claire Bennett stepped off the curb, waving frantically for a taxi. Her shoes splashed through puddles, the city lights reflecting off her soaked blazer. It was past midnight, and the last thing she wanted was to walk another block alone in the storm. A yellow cab screeched to a stop. The driver leaned over, cracked the window, and said in a calm, deep voice, "Need a ride, miss?" She nodded quickly, sliding into the back seat. The car smelled faintly of coffee and old leather. She rubbed her hands together to shake off the chill. The driver wore a dark cap pulled low over his forehead. His shoulders were broad, posture straight, not the slouched, weary frame she expected from a night shift cabbie. Something about him felt composed, controlled. "Where to?" "Riverside Apartments," she replied. He nodded without another word, eyes focused on the wet, winding streets ahead. The rhythmic thump of the wipers filled the silence. Claire pulled out her phone. No signal. Typical. The storm must have knocked something out again. She sighed, leaning back. That's when she noticed it. A small silver pendant hanging from the rearview mirror, shaped like an eagle clutching a key. She blinked. She'd seen that symbol before. Years ago, it had been plastered across every newspaper and news site. Eagle syndicate leader vanishes after FBI raid. Her heart skipped. Couldn't be. "Nice pendant," she said casually. "Family heirloom?" The man's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "Something like that." The wipers squeaked again. Thunder rumbled in the distance. For a moment, his eyes flicked up to meet hers in the mirror, and she saw them clearly. Piercing, cold, intelligent, not the eyes of a simple driver. They drove in silence for a few minutes. Then, as they passed the old bridge, she noticed him glance toward the dark river below, just for a second too long. Something in her gut whispered that this was no ordinary ride. When they finally stopped in front of her building, Claire reached into her purse. "How much do I owe you?" He turned slowly, his gloved hands resting on the steering wheel. "You've already paid enough," he said quietly. Before she could respond, he removed his cap, and the moment she saw his face, she gasped. It was Alexander Cross, the man the world thought was dead. Claire's pulse thundered in her ears. She couldn't look away. The rain outside blurred the world into streaks of light, but inside the taxi, everything was frozen in stillness. Alexander Cross. The name alone carried weight. Once a corporate titan, later accused of laundering billions and orchestrating disappearances tied to the Eagle Syndicate. And now, sitting in her cab, alive. "You're supposed to be dead," she whispered. A faint, humorless smile curved across his face. "So are a lot of people who cross certain lines." She instinctively reached for the door handle, but it didn't budge. "Locked." "Don't," he said calmly. "I'm not here to hurt you, Claire." Her name. He knew her name. "How do you?" "I know more than you think," he interrupted softly. "You work at Dalton Industries. You were promoted last month, and you've been looking for answers, the kind no one wants you to find." Her stomach dropped. She had been digging, secretly, into Dalton Hayes, her company's CEO. Whispers of fraud, missing funds, secret accounts. She thought she was being careful. But if Alexander Cross knew, "What do you want from me?" He turned back toward the windshield, engine still humming quietly. "Maybe the same thing you do." The truth. Thunder boomed above. The light from passing cars flickered across his worn face. Lines of regret, shadows of a man haunted. "You think Hayes is clean?" Alexander continued. "He's the reason I disappeared." Claire froze. "Dalton Hayes set you up?" Alexander nodded slowly. "And now he's doing the same to you." The words hit like a slap. Claire's voice trembled. "Why me? I'm just an analyst." "Because you found something you shouldn't have," he said, glancing at her reflection in the mirror. "And because you remind me of someone I failed to save." For a brief moment, the mask of composure cracked, just enough for her to see the pain underneath. The rain eased into a soft drizzle. Alexander reached into the glove compartment and slid an old USB drive across the seat. "Take it. Don't open it at home. Don't trust anyone, not even your friends at Dalton." Her trembling hand took the small device. Cold metal. Heavy meaning. "What's on it?" "Proof," he said. "But once you see it, you can't unsee it." Claire wanted to ask more, but the cab suddenly jolted to a stop, not at her apartment, but an empty intersection. He turned toward her again. His eyes, steel blue and sorrowful, locked onto hers. From this moment on, you're part of something bigger, and they'll come for you. Before she could speak, the door unlocked with a click. Get out. She hesitated. What about you? You'll see me again. When it's time. And just like that, she stepped into the rain, clutching the USB, as the taxi disappeared into the night. Claire's apartment was quiet, too quiet. The storm had faded into a steady drizzle outside, but her heart hadn't stopped racing since the taxi vanished. She placed the USB drive on her kitchen counter like it was a live grenade. Its metallic shell reflected the dim glow of her lamp. Every instinct told her to throw it away. But another voice whispered, "You've come too far to stop now." She poured herself a cup of coffee, sat down, and powered on her laptop. The screen flickered to life. For a moment, she just stared at the drive. Then, with trembling hands, she plugged it in. A single folder appeared, the ledger. Inside, dozens of encrypted files. She double-clicked one, and the password prompt appeared. Of course, she muttered. He wouldn't make it easy. But as she scanned the screen, a small notepad file caught her attention. Read me. She opened it. A short line glowed on the screen. Try your birthday. She froze. How would Alexander Cross know her birthday? Hesitant, she typed it in. The files unlocked. The first document loaded, a spreadsheet of offshore accounts, wire transfers, and coded names. But one column stood out. Dalton Industries, black budget allocations. Millions moved to unknown subsidiaries. Some of the recipients' initials matched known members of the Eagle Syndicate. Her breath caught. Dalton Hayes wasn't the hero the media painted. He wasn't a savior CEO. He was feeding the same criminal network that supposedly died with Alexander Cross. She scrolled further, then stopped cold. Her own name was on the list. No, that's impossible. According to the files, Claire Bennett had received $150,000 through a Cayman Islands account, one she'd never opened. Suddenly, the pieces fell into place. She was being framed. The floorboards cracked behind her. She turned sharply. Nothing. Just the hum of the refrigerator. Then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. You shouldn't have opened it. A man's voice, calm, smooth, dangerous. Who is this? Claire demanded. Someone who knows what you've seen. Delete the files. Walk away, or you won't see sunrise. The line went dead. Her hand shook as she dropped the phone. She looked toward the window and saw a dark figure standing across the street, just barely visible under the streetlight. Not moving, just watching. The USB drive was still plugged in, the laptop screen flickering with names and numbers that could destroy an empire. And now, it was too late to turn back. The streetlight outside flickered again. That same dark figure still stood across the road, silent, unmoving, just watching. Claire's chest tightened. She reached for her phone, but the screen was black. Dead. The call earlier had drained the last of the battery. The apartment felt smaller now, the shadows deeper. Every sound, the wind, the pipes, the faint hum of her laptop, made her flinch. She unplugged the USB drive, stuffed it into her pocket, and killed the lights. For a moment, the world went completely dark. Only the rain against the window broke the silence. Claire crept to the blinds, parting them just enough to peek out. The man was gone. Her stomach dropped. She spun toward her door and froze. There, lying on the floor, was a folded piece of paper that hadn't been there minutes ago. Someone had slipped it under her door. She bent down, hesitating, then opened it. Scrawled in rough handwriting were 3 words. He's lying to you. Her pulse raced. Was it about Alexander Cross? Or Dalton Hayes? A noise behind her, a faint click. The back door. She turned slowly, eyes wide, adrenaline surging. Who's there? No answer. Then, a voice, low and steady from the darkness. You shouldn't be alone, Claire. She gasped and grabbed a kitchen knife, pointing it toward the sound. A shadow moved, then stepped into the dim light. Alexander Cross. Soaked, expression grim, but unmistakably him. How did you find me? She demanded. You left your phone on. They traced the signal. You said not to open the drive? She snapped. You set me up. He shook his head, calm but firm. If I wanted you dead, Claire, I wouldn't be here. Hayes knows you have the files. His men are already moving. We need to go. She backed away, knife trembling. Why should I trust you? He stepped closer, voice low but urgent. Because I'm the only one who can prove your innocence. You're in the same trap I was. She searched his face, the exhaustion, the guilt, the honesty buried under years of running. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating his features for a split second. And that's when she saw it. A scar on his temple, fresh, stitched. You've been hurt, she said softly. I've been hunted, he replied. Another sound, tires screeching outside. Headlights swept across the wall. Alexander moved fast, grabbing her wrist. We don't have time. If you stay, you die. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. For a brief moment, Claire hesitated. Then she dropped the knife. Fine, but if you're lying to me, then you'll have your chance to kill me later, he said coldly. He opened the back door, rain pouring in. Move. And as they vanished into the night, a black SUV slowed in front of the apartment. Two men inside watching through tinted glass. Rain hammered down like bullets as Claire and Alexander sprinted through the alley, their footsteps echoing off wet concrete. Behind them, the black SUV's doors slammed, voices shouted, men yelling commands into radios. Alexander led the way, every turn precise, every step deliberate. Claire struggled to keep up, soaked and breathless, clutching the USB drive like her life depended on it, because it did. Where are we going? She gasped. Somewhere they won't look, Alexander replied. They darted into an underground parking structure, the flickering lights casting long shadows across cracked pillars. He stopped near an old gray sedan, popped the trunk, and tossed her a jacket. Put that on. You're freezing. You still haven't told me who's chasing us, she said, pulling it tight. He scanned the area before answering. Hayes Private Security. They don't answer to the police. If they find us, we disappear. Claire swallowed hard. Why me? Why frame me? Alexander looked at her then, really looked. His blue eyes held something like regret. Because you're the only one smart enough to connect the dots. You were getting too close to the truth. He leaned against the car, exhaling slowly. Dalton Hayes built his empire on the ashes of others, including mine. He needed someone to take the fall when those funds surfaced. You were perfect. Loyal, quiet, brilliant, invisible. She shook her head in disbelief. You're saying he used me? He's been using everyone, Alexander said. But you still have a chance to stop him. Claire looked down at the USB drive. There's more on this, isn't there? He nodded. Not just money trails. Evidence. Conversations. Files that show Hayes ordered the hits that covered his crimes. The ledger was his insurance policy, a copy he didn't think anyone would find. Claire frowned. But how did you get it? A faint smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. Let's just say I have friends in low places. She wanted to believe him, but something about his calmness, his precision, made her uneasy. He wasn't just a man trying to clear his name. He was playing a game she didn't yet understand. Then the sound of tires screeching echoed from the street above. Alexander's eyes hardened. They're here. He motioned her toward the car. Get in. Claire hesitated, but then headlights flashed through the entrance ramp. Gunfire cracked through the night. She ducked, screaming as bullets sparked against concrete. Alexander shoved her into the passenger seat, slid behind the wheel, and slammed his foot down. The car roared to life, fishtailing out of the garage. Hold on, he shouted. They burst onto the slick highway, city lights streaking by as sirens wailed behind them. Claire gripped the dashboard. You said you wanted to stop Hayes. How? By giving the world what he's trying to bury, he said, eyes locked on the road. And what's that? The truth about who really runs Dalton Industries. The rain pounded harder, lightning flashing ahead, and in that instant, Claire saw it in his reflection. For the first time, Alexander Cross looked afraid. The rain finally stopped hours later. The car's engine ticked softly as it cooled, parked deep in the woods miles outside the city. Mist clung to the trees, and the early dawn light painted the horizon gray. Claire sat quietly in the passenger seat, hands trembling slightly. The adrenaline from the chase had faded, replaced by exhaustion and fear. Alexander leaned back, scanning the woods. His every movement still had that sharp, trained precision, a man who'd spent years surviving on instinct. We can't stay long, he said quietly. They'll track the plates. Claire looked at the USB drive in her lap, the tiny object that had torn her life apart. You said it had everything. I need to see it all. Alexander hesitated, then nodded. He reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a small, weathered laptop. Older, no Wi-Fi, no GPS, off-grid, he said. They booted it up. The files appeared again, and this time, Alexander typed a second password. New folders unlocked. Confidential, level 7. Video files. Transcripts. Phone records. Claire clicked one at random. The screen filled with grainy footage, a hidden camera view of a sleek office boardroom. Her breath caught. Sitting at the head of the table was Dalton Hayes, sharp suit, arrogant smirk, just as she remembered him from company meetings. Gentlemen, Hayes said in the recording, we've cleaned the Cross situation. His assets are liquidated, and the narrative is controlled. No one will question his disappearance. Claire's eyes widened. He's talking about you. Alexander didn't answer. His jaw tightened as he stared at the screen. Then another man entered the frame. Someone Claire didn't expect. Her boss, Evelyn Carter. Evelyn, calm and composed, slid a folder across the table to Hayes. The Bennett file is ready. The transfers are under her name. If anyone audits the accounts, she takes the fall. Claire's stomach turned. No, that's not possible. Evelyn, she's my mentor. Alexander's voice was flat. She sold you out. The video continued. Hayes leaned back, smirking. Good. I want her to panic first. Fear makes people sloppy. The clip ended. The room went silent except for Claire's shaking breath. Tears filled her eyes, part rage, part disbelief. She knew. She knew what they were doing to me. Alexander closed the laptop. Now you see why I had to disappear. She turned toward him, voice breaking. Why didn't you go public with this years ago? He stared out the window, rain droplets still clinging to the glass. Because it's not just Hayes. This goes deeper. People in government, finance, law enforcement. The moment I tried to expose it, they buried me, and everyone who helped. Claire looked down at the USB again. So what now? Alexander met her eyes. Now, you decide what kind of person you want to be. The one who runs, or the one who fights. Her fear began to shift into anger, determination. If Evelyn's part of this, she'll lead us straight to Hayes. Alexander gave a faint, grim smile. Then we start with her. He started the engine. The car rumbled to life, headlights cutting through the fog. Claire clenched her fists. Let's finish what they started. The city had dried after the storm, but the tension in the air was thicker than ever. Claire sat quietly in the passenger seat as Alexander drove through the empty streets of the financial district. Dawn light reflected off glass towers, cold, sharp, unfeeling, like the people who worked inside them. Alexander parked the car in an underground lot beneath Carter & Associates, Evelyn Carter's private consultancy firm. She'll be here, Alexander said, checking his watch. She starts her mornings early. Always has. Claire stared up at the mirrored building. You've been watching her? For years, he said quietly. She was Dalton's handler, his fixer, the one who made the money disappear. Claire's grip on the USB tightened. Then let's end it. They took the elevator up to the 12th floor. Claire's heart pounded with each metallic ding. When the doors opened, the air smelled faintly of coffee and expensive perfume. Evelyn Carter stood by the window, her auburn hair neatly tied back, sharp cheekbones framed by morning light. She turned slowly, perfectly calm, as if she'd been expecting them. Claire, she said with a soft smile. You look tired. Claire froze. Evelyn's voice, once warm and reassuring, now felt cold and rehearsed. You framed me, Claire said, trembling. No, Evelyn replied smoothly. I protected the company. You were collateral. Alexander stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. You protected Hayes, not the company. Don't play semantics. Evelyn's smile faded slightly. Alexander Cross, she said, studying him. Back from the dead. I should have known you'd drag her into this. You dragged her in when you used her name, he shot back. Claire slammed the USB drive on Evelyn's desk. It's over. The files, the videos, everything's here. Evelyn glanced at it, unimpressed. You think that's enough? Hayes owns half the regulators, and the other half owe him favors. You leak this, and you disappear like Alexander did. Not this time, Claire said. We'll go public. Media. Whistleblower networks. Someone will listen. Evelyn stepped closer, her expression softening, almost maternal. Oh, Claire, you still believe in good people. That's what I liked about you. Her hand brushed Claire's shoulder gently, but her tone turned to ice. That belief will get you killed. Before Claire could react, Evelyn pressed a small remote hidden behind her desk. Instantly, metal shutters slammed down over the windows. The lights dimmed. A low electronic hum filled the room. Alexander spun around, gun in hand. You planned this. Evelyn shrugged, stepping back calmly. You two walked right into it. The elevator doors opened behind them. Two street enforcers, rough, scarred men in leather jackets, stepped out, weapons drawn. Claire's breath caught. Alexander. Stay behind me, he muttered, ice cold. One of the men eared. Orders are clear. Hayes wants them alive, for now. The room filled with tension, silent but ready to explode. Evelyn watched from behind her desk, arms folded, perfectly composed. You should have stayed gone, Alexander, she said. Now you'll both be ghosts. Alexander raised his gun slowly, eyes locked on her. I've been one for a long time. The lights flickered once, and chaos erupted. Gunfire echoed through the glass halls, shattering silence and safety alike. The first bullet shattered the glass behind them. Claire dropped to the floor, covering her ears as sparks flew from the desk where Evelyn had just been standing. Alexander moved like a man who'd done this before. Precise, fast, deliberate. He returned fire, hitting the lights to plunge the office into semi-darkness. The street enforcers advanced carefully, flashlights cutting through the shadows. Their boots echoed across the polished floor. Stay low, Alexander hissed, sliding beside Claire. We can't win this, she whispered back. We're not here to win. We're here to survive. He grabbed the USB from the desk and shoved it into his pocket just as a bullet grazed his arm. He winced but didn't stop. Evelyn crouched behind her desk, barking orders through a hidden earpiece. Don't kill them yet. Bring them down. I want that drive intact. Claire's pulse pounded in her ears. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she couldn't leave Alexander behind. He nodded toward the far side of the office, a maintenance door. That's our exit. Together, they crawled along the floor as bullets tore through walls and furniture. The smell of gunpowder and ozone filled the air. Suddenly, one of the enforcers spotted movement. There, he shouted. Alexander turned, firing two quick shots. One hit the man's shoulder, the other shattered the window behind him. Claire grabbed the fallen man's keycard. Her hands trembled, slick with sweat. Go, Alexander urged. They burst through the maintenance door and into a narrow stairwell. Alarms blared overhead, security lights flashing red. As they descended, Alexander's breathing grew heavier. Claire glanced back. His sleeve was soaked with blood. You're hurt. I've been worse, he grunted. They reached the underground parking level, but the exit gate was closing, automated lockdown. Evelyn's voice echoed through the intercom, calm and venomous. You can't run from this, Alexander. You've always been good at disappearing, but not this time. He looked up, eyes blazing. Watch me. He raised his gun, shot the control panel. Sparks flew, and the gate shuddered open halfway. Go, Claire. Not without you. Before she could argue further, the remaining enforcer emerged from behind a column, firing wildly. Alexander shoved Claire out of the line of fire, taking a bullet to the side. He stumbled but stayed upright, returning fire until the man fell. Alexander. Claire screamed, catching him as he dropped to one knee. Blood stained his coat, spreading fast. He forced a weak smile. Don't stop now. The world needs to see what they did. He handed her the USB drive, his fingers trembling. Take it to the one place Hayes can't touch, the press. Tears welled in Claire's eyes. You're coming with me. But Alexander shook his head slowly. If I slow you down, we both die? Go. Don't waste what we started. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed, more guards coming. Claire hesitated only a moment longer, then pressed his hand tightly. I'll finish this. I swear it. She ran toward the half-open gate, the USB clutched like a lifeline. As she slipped through, she turned back one last time. Alexander sat slumped against a pillar, gun still in hand, facing the door. A faint, resolute smile touched his lips. End it, Claire. The gate slammed shut behind her just as gunfire erupted once more. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Outside, the dawn was breaking, the first sunlight cutting through smoke and rain. Claire flagged down an empty taxi and climbed in, her voice shaking as she gave the driver an address. Global Chronicle, the newsroom downtown. Her reflection in the glass showed a woman transformed, no longer a frightened assistant, but a survivor carrying the weight of truth. As the taxi sped off, the faint echo of gunfire faded behind her. The taxi screeched to a stop outside the Global Chronicle, a towering building of glass and steel that shimmered in the morning light. Claire stepped out, clutching the USB tightly in her fist. Her clothes were torn, her hands still shaking from the chaos she'd left behind. She whispered to herself, "Almost there. Just one more step." The newsroom lobby was alive with activity. Reporters rushing, phones ringing, coffee cups clinking. No one noticed her enter. She was just another face in the city's storm. She approached the front desk, voice trembling. "I need to speak to your editor, urgently. It's about Dalton Hayes." The receptionist glanced up, eyes narrowing. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," Claire said, leaning forward. "But if I don't see him now, people could die." The woman hesitated, then picked up the phone. Moments later, she nodded. "12th floor. He'll see you." Claire exhaled shakily and took the elevator up. Each floor that passed felt heavier. The air, the silence, the weight of what she carried. When the doors opened, she was met with a wall of glass overlooking the city. Inside, journalists sat behind glowing monitors. But one man stood apart, near the window, hands clasped behind his back. He turned slowly. Dalton Hayes. Her heart stopped. He looked immaculate as always, slicked back hair, sharp navy blue suit, faint, arrogant smirk. "Miss Bennett," he said smoothly, "I was beginning to think you wouldn't make it." She stepped back instinctively. How did you?" "No." He smiled thinly. "You really thought you could hide from me using one of my own drivers?" Claire's breath caught. You knew about Alexander?" Hayes sighed, almost amused. "Of course I did. He was one of my best once, until he grew a conscience." He walked toward her, his shoes clicking on the polished floor. "You've caused quite a mess, Claire. Evelyn warned me about your persistence, but I didn't think you'd actually steal the files." She clutched the USB tighter. "You killed him." "I gave him a chance to walk away," Hayes said coldly. "He chose sentiment." Claire's voice. He cracked with rage. "He died for this, for the truth." Hayes stopped just inches away. "Truth." He chuckled softly. "The truth doesn't matter, Claire. Power does. And I have all of it." He gestured toward the USB in her hand. "You really think any newsroom in this city will run that? Half of them are on my payroll." Her mind raced, her plan collapsing in real time. "Then why let me get this far?" "Because," Hayes said, leaning closer, "I wanted you to see how powerless you really are." The elevator dinged softly behind her. Claire turned and froze. Evelyn Carter stepped out, flawless as ever, a faint smirk on her lips. "You didn't think I'd miss the finale, did you?" Claire's eyes darted between them. "You were working together?" "Always have," Evelyn replied. "He funds, I clean. A perfect partnership." Hayes reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded document. "You'll sign this. A confession stating the leak came from you alone. You'll take the fall, and we'll forget this ever happened." Claire stared at the paper, then back at them. "And if I don't?" Evelyn smiled, pulling out her phone. "Then I send this to the police, security footage from your office. You know, the one that shows you breaking in." Claire's world spun. They had thought of everything. But then, she remembered Alexander's words. "If something happens to me, look under the back seat. You'll know what to do." Her pulse quickened. There had been a second drive, a hidden duplicate. Claire's trembling turned to calm. She met Hayes' gaze and slowly slipped the USB into her jacket. "You want me to sign? Fine. But I want coffee first." Hayes frowned, confused. Evelyn gestured toward the door. "Make it quick." Claire turned and walked toward the elevator, every step steady, every breath calculated. When the doors closed, she whispered, "You're right, Dalton. Power matters. But so does timing." Inside her pocket, her phone vibrated once, a scheduled upload confirmed. The duplicate files were already online, auto-sent to independent journalists around the world. As the elevator descended, Claire finally smiled, tired, broken, but victorious. Behind her, on the 12th floor, alarms began to sound. Hayes' empire was crumbling. The elevator door slid open to the city's morning light. Claire stepped out into chaos. Reporters swarmed the streets. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Her phone buzzed nonstop with notifications. The story had gone viral. Headlines flashed across every major network. Newspaper, global financial tycoon exposed in massive fraud scandal. Newspaper, Carter and Associates under investigation. CEO missing. Newspaper. Inside the secret files of Dalton Hayes. Claire stopped in the middle of the street, tears welling in her eyes as the weight of everything hit her. The world finally knew. People rushed past, holding phones, reading the headlines aloud. The air itself felt electric, alive with truth. But beneath the noise, one thought burned in her chest. Alexander. She found the nearest quiet alley and pulled out her phone. There was a single unread message from an unknown number. Her hands shook as she opened it. If you're reading this, it means you made it out. I told you not to waste what we started. Hey. Her heart skipped. Attached was a video file. She pressed play. Alexander appeared on screen, sitting in the same taxi she'd first met him in. His face tired, eyes heavy but full of purpose. Claire, he began. If you're watching this, I'm probably gone. But there's something I need you to know, something I couldn't tell you before. The camera shifted slightly, revealing a military insignia on his jacket pocket, faded but unmistakable. I wasn't just a driver. Before Dalton Hayes and Evelyn Carter built their empire, I was assigned to investigate them, deep cover. When the operation fell apart, I took the fall. They buried me, erased my name, made me a ghost. Claire covered her mouth, whispering, You were an agent. When I saw you that night, Alexander continued, I saw the same fire I once had. You reminded me why I started all this. You gave me a reason to finish it. He looked away for a moment, then back at the camera. The files you leaked today, they're not just about money. They expose politicians, judges, entire systems built to protect men like Hayes. You didn't just free me, Claire. You freed them all. The video glitched for a second, then cut to static. Claire wiped her tears, overwhelmed. A voice behind her made her freeze. Quite the performance, wasn't it? She turned. Victor Dalton stood at the end of the alley, receding hairline, trimmed beard, sly eyes gleaming. He held a phone in one hand, a calm smirk on his lips. Alexander was good, Victor said softly. But he forgot one thing. Every empire has another layer beneath it. Claire's eyes narrowed. You're part of this too. Part. He laughed quietly. My dear, I own what comes next. Hayes was a puppet. Now that he's gone, the board needs a new chairman. Her pulse raced. You can't stop this. The world knows now. The world knows what I allow them to know. He took a step closer, voice dropping to a whisper. But don't worry. You'll get your fame, your sympathy. Everyone loves a survivor. He turned to leave, but Claire spoke up. You're wrong. Victor paused. You think you control the narrative, but Alexander didn't trust me with just one drive. There's another, one tied to your accounts, your deals, your family offshore. Victor froze mid-step. The smirk vanished. Claire's voice steadied, strong and cold. I already sent it to the authorities. You'll be famous too. Victor's jaw clenched. He looked back at her, and for the first time, the mask cracked. Then he smiled again, faint but chilling. Then I guess Alexander taught you well. He disappeared into the crowd, leaving Claire standing alone, the city alive with sirens and breaking news. She looked up at the rising sun. For the first time in years, she felt the warmth not as a spotlight, but as peace. She whispered to the sky, You did it, Alexander. We both did. Then she turned, walking toward the city, her reflection caught in a passing taxi's mirror. The driver wore a hat, face hidden in shadow. As the car passed, the man adjusted the mirror, revealing a faint, familiar smile. It was Alexander. Alive. Watching. Protecting. The screen faded to black. Text on screen. Sometimes, the truth doesn't end the story, it begins one. If this story moved you, if you believe the truth still matters, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. More stories like this are coming, each one inspired by the power of courage, secrets, and redemption.